Are you searching for the best defensive props for week 6 of the NFL season? Well, come hang out. We've got just what you need on this week's episode of the IDP Plus Defensive Props Podcast. The Props Podcast, where Johnny and I have been giving you guys doing some research and just kind of giving you our favorite tackle plays from what comes up on DraftKings each and every week. We've been through, I think, 4 weeks of plays now. So far, we've been profitable overall. Last week, we kind of had a little bit of a dip, but we'll get back into that later. For now, we'll just go ahead and hop into it, and I'll kick it off here to Johnny to give us his first play of the week. So what have you got for us, man?
Yeah, so I'm excited about this first one. I got a guy named Antonio Johnson, safety for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am going to propose the over on his 3.5 solo tackle marker. It is minus 160. That is, once again, the over on 3.5 tackles for Antonio Johnson. He gets a Chicago defense this week. Last week, if we look at Chicago, they played the Carolina Panthers. Xavier Woods was the trendsetter, the top safety there in Carolina. He hit this marker. He had 5 solo tackles. So coming off a good juju last week with Xavier Woods doing it, now it's Antonio Johnson's turn. I'm surprised this is 3.5. I thought it'd be 4.5. The reason why is because Antonio Johnson in his first 5 games has had at least 5 solo tackles. So for this line to be at only 3.5, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I know there's no juice. It's minus 160. But to me, the track record speaks for itself. This is a player who plays 100% of snaps. To me, I think Chicago is going to have to throw the ball, whether it be because they're down or, to continue to build on Caleb Williams' foundation. But yeah, they have great wide receivers there. I mean, it's not a game where I'm looking at it and I'm thinking they're going to run heavy. They're going to pass. To me, it doesn't matter. I think Antonio Johnson, he kind of plays all over the place. And to me, I think again, track record, good matchup. Xavier Woods last week did it for Carolina versus Chicago. So that's my first prop is Antonio Johnson over 3.5 solos, minus 160. And I'm feeling pretty good about it, Axton. What's your first leg here?
First of all, I'll kind of back that one a little bit. The guy who's had no less than 5 tackles in the game, you got to like that 3.5 tackle line, especially when you're going up against a Chicago offense that's been a lot more successful as of late. And so far against the most successful teams, he's had his best games, 9-11 tackles against Miami with Tua and then Indianapolis with Flacco. That's just 2 offenses that were able to push the ball down the field now. I think his lower game against Houston is kind of a little puzzling, but you say he's hit this. So seems like it's really not. It seems like the matchup really doesn't matter, but it just lends well with a positive game script on Chicago's end. So you know that Jaguars are going to be on defense quite a bit. So like that play to start us off. But my first play is going to be old reliable. I think I played him a couple of weeks ago at this same line, and it's Budda Baker over 2.5 assisted tackles. And I think there's only been 1 week that Budda hasn't hit this line, and I believe it was against the Rams, which didn't really play well into game script for him. He still plays around the line of scrimmage, but that offense just was kind of falling apart, and the game was over by like the end of the third quarter, I believe. So we'll chalk it up as a mulligan, but this defense of Arizona's does allow a lot of rushing success, which really plays in well for the linebackers, and then like Kaiser White, who's notoriously getting 8+ tackle games week in and week out, regardless of matchup, and then DBs who are playing around the line of scrimmage often, are successful in game scripts like this with positive rushing game scripts. So I expect Green Bay to establish the run early and often with Josh Jacobs. He's really been ramping up and been more successful on the ground as the season has gone on. And I think that Arizona's often going to be on the field quite a bit on defense because Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers know how to push the ball down the field. So I think Budda Baker is going to keep on his heavy tackling run and probably add another 8 or 10 more tackles this week. And you got to figure at least 2.5 or 3 of those are going to be assisted. He's had pretty good splits this year so far. So I feel really comfortable with this 2.5 tackle line at -150 for Budda Baker. What do you think? And then we'll just kind of roll into your next pick.
Yeah, I'm backing you, man. I like that. Budda Baker's had a nice blend. It's not a guy who you're dependent on solos. He's had a nice blend, like you said, of assists as well. And we're looking for 2.5. I think that's very doable. Coming from a guy who very little does this happen where, it's only week 6, but a safety is leading the team in combined tackles, which is very impressive. So let's keep the ball rolling there with Budda Baker. I love it, Axton. And not crazy odds either. -150. This isn't a -210 kind of play. You get some kind of positive reward there. So I shouldn't say positive, but not horrible odds, and I think it's likely. So I do like that one myself. Moving right into my next pick, I'm going back to him. He let me down last week, but Cody Barton's just that dude. And this week he's going to get over 4.5 solos. I can feel it at -150. So I'm a big fan of Cody Barton. I mean, he's playing 100% of snaps now. Last week he had 7 solos, albeit no assists, which spoiled me last week, but that's a story for another time. So yeah, track record's looking good. Snaps are there. We know Singleton's out. One other caveat I have is, Patrick Surtain is going to be playing the outside. He's not going to be in the slot. And the Chargers' best wide receiver at this point, we'll say, is Ladd McConkey, and he plays in the slot. So to me, I'm kind of thinking that LA, even though they don't throw the ball often, to me that's a blessing in this case. Hopefully they can sustain running the ball and staying up in this game. So Cody Barton can just make those tackles on the running backs. But to me, I'm also looking at additional factor of if McConkey's their best receiver, we know Surtain's going to be on the outside. Maybe that funnels things through the inside more. And I can just see whether – I'm not saying Cody Barton's going to be on Ladd McConkey, and we're looking for those tackles. It's probably going to be the slot cornerback. But at the same time, anything can happen over the middle as long as a catch is made in the middle or a ball carrier is running up the middle. That's where Cody Barton's going to be. So I think this is a very achievable. Came off last week with 7 solos. Now we're just looking for 5. So at -150, again, it's no shoe in, but at the same time you're not getting juice. But when we look at the whole, the bet as a whole, Cody Barton, I just think he's good to make this mark. So again, I think the stars are aligned right, and I think he's we're going to go back to the well, and he's going to make good on this one, Axton.
Yeah, he's in that lead tackling role for the Denver Broncos, which, as we all know, has been very lucrative for Alex Singleton. And I think last week we saw Cody Barton fall short in most of his lines with just 7 total tackles. Let me see, who did they play last week?
It was Vegas last week.
That's not a great game script for linebackers at all. They have a terrible rushing attack, but the Chargers are gonna, they're gonna split. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins to each get 10 or more rushes, so you can probably look at a floor of 20 rushes at the very least, and Cody Barton's going to be in on a lot of those. And I imagine this is a game where he could probably get back on track and start cruising on that 10 tackle a game mark that he kind of was riding last year. And when you're talking about a line kind of like that and somebody who has done that before and can very well do it now is in an even better role within this offense. I like Cody Barton to get over 4.5 solos this week. He's got pretty good splits, and a guy who can easily get 10. You got a pretty good odds to for him to get over 4.5. So -150. Parlay that with something else we got here. I think you're still looking at two or 3 times your cash at least in profit. So just for kind of a quick little 2-legger. So like that one. We'll move on to my next pick here for Zach Baun to get over 5.5 solo tackles. We kind of like the solo lines. They didn't really give us great odds this week. This one's -120. It's a little bit better than what we kind of started off with, but Let's see, talk about Zach Baun a little bit. He plays against the Cleveland Browns this week, who have actually been surprisingly generous to opposing linebackers, considering their lack of success on offense and not being able to sustain very long drives. There's been quite a few guys been able to get at least reach this mark or surpass it. And I'm pretty sure that, let's see, both Jacksonville linebackers got close to this. They both had 8 tackles in like week 3 or something like that. I know that I forget the splits on those. But Robert Spillane had 12 tackles. I know he crushed this solo marker, and Zach Bont's the leading tackle getter for Philadelphia. So I imagine that anything that's coming up the middle is going to be right in Zach Bont's breadbasket. And he's done 3 out of 4 games already. You got to figure that Cleveland has to get something going. They've been the laughing stock of the NFL at this point. So something's got to give. They got to do something this week, and or they're going to have to make some serious changes very soon. So I think that Cleveland, even though that they haven't been very successful in the first few weeks, I think maybe they kind of this matchup presents a pretty good passing matchup for Cleveland. So maybe they sustain longer drives, and Deshaun Watson can kind of keep the offense on the field a little bit longer and allow our Philadelphia defenders, that's Zach Baun namely, to kind of get a few extra snaps and really crush this line for what would be 4 out of 5 weeks this year. He's the leading tackle getter for Philly, and I think he's going to predominantly get he's probably should be one of the top few tackle getters in this game. So I like Zach Baun to get over 5.5 this week against Cleveland at -120.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Ax. I mean, we're talking about a guy, the first 3 games of this season, averaging 9 solo tackles, then takes a slight downturn last week in a bad I should say week 4, was on bye last week in a bad matchup versus Tampa Bay, only finished with 2 solos. So, good. I'm smiling because of it, because, now we're sitting at 5.5 again, and Zach Baun becomes a likely candidate to hit this. Very, very good matchup, like Axton said, versus Cleveland this week. And I don't see, just the snaps were there. It's not like, oh, somebody else is taking his spot. He will be out there. He's probably their best defensive player to date this season. So Zach Baun, to me, at 5.5, I don't care what the odds is, plus minus. I think in a good matchup, he's very likely to get this. So I'm backing that pick a lot, Axton. And before we jump into my next pick, I wanted to mention that right now we are running a promo at the idpplus.com website. So if you're not subscribed, you can become a subscriber today by going to idpplus.com/membership. And what we're offering is to start your season, or I should say now we're in week 6, continue your season off right with an IDP Plus subscription. You will get 20% off any subscription for a limited time with the promo code PROPS, and get access to our tools, our data, IDP articles, and don't miss out on our subscriber Discord. So once again, go to our website at idpplus.com, then put /membership. And when you check out, use the promo code PROPS, and you will get 20% off site-wide. Moving into my next pick, I have I'm going to come back to this same game, this Denver and LA game, and I'm going to go Derwin James over 4.5. Again, over 4.5 solos, -115 versus Denver. And to me, we got Derwin coming off. The biggest kicker is his history with this team, but he is coming off 2 out of 3 so far. He was suspended a game, then had a bye week, so he's only played 3 games, but 2 out of 3, 66% of those, he's made good. He had 6 solos versus Las Vegas in one of those 3 games. He had 5 solos versus Pittsburgh. I'm not saying he's going to smash this and get 10 solos, but when we look at the history, Derwin James has averaged over 5 solos per game versus Denver in his 9 games played through his career. He's totaled 46 solo tackles. That is, if you do the math, just 1 tackle over an average of 5. So to me, he's averaging that in his career. I understand, those 9 games, those other 8 or those 9 games before aren't the same Denver Broncos he's playing this time, but it is an in-division game. I do expect him to be out there hungry, coming off a suspension. I do expect the Chargers to be up in this game, or at least keep it close, which bodes well against a game script scare. I don't expect Denver to be up 40 points and just running it. And even if that's the case, Derwin James plays close to the box. So nothing is out of the question for me. I mean, Derwin James can get tackles, multi-level, multi-facet kind of tackler here. So it doesn't matter if it's, a lot of passing, a lot of running. Derwin James, I think he's going to get over 4.5 solos here. And for minus 115 odds, maybe if he would have played those couple games, didn't have a bye, didn't get suspended, maybe we'd be looking at more than just 2 and 3 or 2 out of 3. So I'm looking for Derwin James to continue and make good on this bet here, Axton.
Roquan is one of the best safeties in the league, and the fact that he's been able to crush this into negative game scripts against Vegas and you said Pittsburgh, 2 offenses that aren't really known for sustaining too long of drives. I know Pittsburgh has had more success this year, but it's mainly on the back of Justin Fields' legs, and it's not really, they're just running the ball a lot pretty much, which kind of can play into box safety's hands, but obviously it seemed like it did for the 2 times that he's hit it so far this year. But still, against 2 porous offenses, you kind of figure that Denver isn't looking that great as well to this point in the season, but they're looking better and they have a better coach, arguably, or I guess Pittsburgh's got it. Mike Tomlin's a pretty damn good coach, but Denver's on the uptick, and there's something to be said about guys that perform well against certain teams, regardless of whether the personnel is all the same each year. If he's done this year over year, chances are the personnel has changed year after year, and he hasn't always played the same team. So he's kind of, like I said, there is something to be said with the level of comfortability that he comes into this game with, because I know for a fact when I was playing sports growing up, there were certain teams that I could just kind of hone in on. It really didn't matter, the personnel or who was on the other side of the ball. There was just certain teams that you kind of know what to expect a little bit more. So you just kind of feel a little bit comfortable. And then knowing the history, if you've had more success, you're just, like I said, you're more comfortable in the game. The flow of the game comes to you a little bit better, and you just perform better overall. So I like that pull of Derwin James history with Denver. So I think that's great for Derwin James to hit over 4.5 solos. He's one that can easily crush this on any given week. So I like that play, especially at minus 115 for arguably the best safety in the league. My next play here is going to be Frankie Luvu to hit over 8.5 total tackles at plus 115. We got some plus juice, which still made me nervous because Frankie Luvu's only hit this once this year. He's had 3 straight games of 7 tackles, but bear with me here because he has a matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, who have the 2nd most rush attempts in the league so far this year, which plays very well into our inside linebackers' hands, as Derrick Henry just falls right into Frankie Luvu's lap. And Frankie Luvu's a big guy, so Derrick Henry is going to have a little bit of trouble shaking off these linebackers. But so I really like this matchup for Frankie Luvu, and it's a big game. In case you haven't been paying attention, I'm pretty sure this has one of the highest over/under point totals for the week. This is going to be a very active game, a lot of successful drives, a lot of defensive plays. And like I said, Luvu's only hit this once, but he was playing in a lot worse matchups. This is a top, and if not the top, it's number 2 best matchup for opposing linebackers. So I think in this one, with the amount of rushing and success on offense, that he and Wagner could very well hit their over on total tackles this week. But we're going with Frankie Luvu. He had 1 less tackle on his line, so he could very well get this. I think last year he was hovering over this pretty often. So I feel good about Frankie Luvu to hit this over 8.5 total tackles at plus 115 against the Baltimore Ravens offense.
Yeah, I like it, man. I mean, like you said, I mean, props to you. The odds, the stats aren't in your favor with this one, but I do like it too. I think Vegas sniffed something on this. That's why usually 7.5, 8.5. We see Fred Warner's, we see the upper echelons. Frankie Luvu to me isn't in that category. But as far as consistency, but he does have those big splash games, just like he did versus the Giants in week 2. He had 11 combined tackles, 7 solos. So to me, I mean, this is a walking bomb. Frankie Luvu, I thought he was going to be more of an edge kind of player, but they've really diversified the way that, he's been playing, where he's been playing, and the snaps have been there. So Frankie Luvu, I agree with you. This is a good game for him. Not only Frankie Luvu, but Bobby Wagner to make good on on his mark too. But yeah, Frankie Luvu, I mean, great matchup. I can't wait to watch that game, watch Derrick Henry, and watch him take him down. So excited, and we get some juice here. So don't come crying back if it doesn't hit. But I think the juice is worth it on this one, Axton. So I love that one. For my last pick here, I'm in Pittsburgh, but I'm wearing a Buccaneers LeGarrette Blount shirt right now. So I'm going to go dip into the New Orleans Saints versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm going to give you KJ Britt for my last pick. I'm feeling good about this one. Antonio Johnson, I felt really good about. This is another one. These are probably my top 2 plays of the week. We are looking for over 4.5 solos versus the Saints, and the odds for that are minus 115. So this is my juiciest bet. Nothing positive this week for me. Just wanted to try to stay safe, and this is the definition of a safe. I shouldn't say safe, but a likely bet in this case. If you're looking for tackle props, I think this one should be right up your alley, especially if maybe you want to make a parlay and pad your odds a little bit. KJ Britt started last week. Servassier Dennis, who he was competing for snaps, is now on IR. This will be the second week of it. Well, the first week, last week, KJ Britt played 93% of snaps with 5 solo tackles and 4 assists. So not only is he a good bet for solo tackles based on recent performance in the matchup, but also his combined, I believe it's 7.5, and I would like that too. But when we look at again, going back to somebody who a past performer versus the same defense versus New Orleans defense last week, Nick Bolton would have hit this. He had 6 solos, I believe, 6 or 7 assists too. He had a big game. So I know we're only looking at solos here, but Nick Bolton made good on this last week. KJ Britt playing 93% of snaps, had 9 tackles last week, 5 solos. So I think he actually maybe in the division game improves on that marker and has over 9 tackles. Let's just hope that 5 or more of them are solos, and that's what I think is going to happen this week versus New Orleans. So once again, KJ Britt for Tampa Bay over 4.5 solos versus New Orleans minus 115. Axton, back to you.
Yeah, you got to figure that with Spencer Rattler at quarterback that they kind of lean a little bit more on the run game there to get kind of keep things going and sustain drives a little bit more. I've heard that from Spencer Rattler's college tape that he has the ability to push the ball down the field, but we're seeing a rookie quarterback thrown in the coals of the fire to fend for himself. So I think they have some offensive line injuries too, so it just kind of lends well to that rushing game again, which kind of leads back into our just our linebackers being able to get more production and just being able to suck up more tackles. So KJ Britt kind of being that other staple of this defense kind of in the center there next to Levante David. I like that for KJ Britt to get over 4.5 solos this week, and some pretty good odds there. To wrap it up here, I've got Roquan Smith to get over 3.5 assisted tackles. This comes in at minus 130. Little bit, it's kind of middle of the road in terms of odds of what we've given you this week, but Roquan Smith has hit this in every game except for week 1. And that was against the Kansas City Chiefs, who ran the ball less than 20 times. So that did not favor into our linebackers for that week in particular. So we can maybe have an excuse for that one. But in this one, I figure that Washington's probably going to run the ball quite a bit more, given Jaden Daniels alone is averaging about 8 to 10 rushes or more a game. And then you've got Austin Eckler, you've got McLaughlin, and you've got Brian Robinson all running the ball. I'm pretty sure they're close to 30 rushes a game, which just lends well to our linebackers. Again, running backs are, when they get through the first layer of defense and get through that line, they fall right into the linebackers. So you got to figure, if not the best, one of the best linebackers in the league is going to make good on 3.5 measly assists, especially considering his splits. So far this year, he's got 24 solos and 25 assisted tackles. So we can pretty well bet money that if he gets his average is like 7 or 8 tackles. So if he's going to get 7 or 8 tackles, half of those are going to be assisted tackles, half are roughly solos. And you can pretty well bet that he's going to have a good floor here to crush this, and possibly early on in this game. And I think this is going to, again, I think we talked about this game a little bit earlier, where we have high expectations for this game. There's going to be a lot of long sustained drives, a lot of success on offense, and a lot of defensive snaps in this one. So that's going to wrap it up for our show this week. Again, we just kind of want to remind everybody to stay responsible, bet within your means. Don't overdo this. Don't overdo anything. We're just kind of doing the research here and giving you guys the information that we find. It's kind of up to you to pick and choose and make the plays for yourself. So let's all just try to have fun with this. And again, hopefully we can make you guys a little extra cash this week. So just kind of remember, let's be responsible for any gambling issues. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And to wrap it up before we get out of here, we'll just recap last week. We kind of had a down week compared to the 2 prior weeks before. But real quick, we hit Jalen Jones over half an assisted tackles. I missed on Nick Cross over 4.5 solos. We missed on Cody Barton over 2.5 assisted. Missed on Kaiser White over 8.5 combined. TJ Edwards 4.5 solos we missed on. We did hit on Rasul Douglas late in that game for some plus money at 3.5 solos. Micah McFadden fell a little short of his 4.5 solo tackle mark. Eric Kendricks did hit his 4.5 assisted tackle mark at plus money. But Von Bell kind of let us down from the week before, where he hit his 2.5 assisted tackle mark. He let us down last week with some plus juice. So we're going to look to bounce back this week. We feel like we've got some pretty good matchups and a lot of linebackers and some positive game scripts that maybe we can capitalize on. So good luck out there this week, and let's have some fun, and let us know in the comments if you guys have any success or have any questions, whatever the case may be. Follow me on Twitter at XmanIDP, and follow Johnny as well at JohnnyFreakinF1. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get out of here, and good luck, everybody. We'll see you back next week for week 7 of the IDP Plus Defensive Props Podcast.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.